Good morning, Tom. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
So this is going to be fun because we have lots of family and businesses to talk about today. And I think with your crazy amount of exposure and experience into this field and my personal experience and my other clients that we talked with and through, I think this is going to be a fun episode for the listeners. But for some of the listeners who might not be familiar with you, your book, your background, why don't you just kind of give us the expedited version of where you came from, how you got to where you are, and then why you ended up writing the book.
Well, okay, so I'm going to forewarn you, cut me off because as you know, everyone who has worked in a family business has got a very long story, but I'm going to try to keep it real short. I joined our family business. We were in plastics manufacturing. I joined that after a career in banking at the tender age of 37, which, as you know, is quite late in the world of family businesses. Mm-hmm. Ran that business for 8 years as CEO and then sold. We had an unsolicited offer from a competitor. So we sold to a strategic buyer and we closed that deal on February 8th, 2007, plastics manufacturing, 2007. We got out just before our industry melted down. And I got to tell you, Ryan, we're not that smart. We were incredibly lucky to have found our exit at the time that we did. I worked for the new owners for about 6 months. I like to say I served a 6-month sentence for a crime I didn't commit. It was a brutal period of my life, as anyone who has run a business and then has to stay and watch someone else run your business knows. And then they asked me to go home because I can tell you, family business owners make terrible employees. We just don't take direction. So they asked me to go home. I did, and I took 2 weeks off. I played golf every day, didn't move my handicap a single stroke, and found myself typing away at my computer. And that was about 7:30 in the morning. Around 11 o'clock in the morning, my wife popped her head into my office, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, I think I'm writing a book. And I typed all day and all night. I stopped typing that day at about 3 in the morning, and I typed 10,000 words of what became a 43,000 word book. Most of those first 10,000 words made the editorial cut. And 30 days later, I had a first draft of what is now Every Family's Business, which was listed by the New York Times as the top 10 books for business owners to read. It is just a phenomenal little book that carries with it a profoundly different message for business owners. And I think it's because of that controversial message, that contrarian message, that really propelled the book to sell, as I said, just over 1 million copies. So it's been an incredible journey. That book actually turned me into a professional speaker, not the other way around. It just kind of took me all around the globe. I've spoken in 25 countries, over 1,000 paid speeches. I do large conventions. It's just been the most incredible journey, sharing this incredible perspective, which, by the way, a lot of people disagree with, and I'm completely okay with that. So that's who Tom Deans is. That's how he came to write a book and then followed that up with a sequel. We'll talk about that later, but that's who I am, and that's what I do.
Well, and yeah, like there's not just a shortage of things to talk about here. So so first of all, let's just start with why, for the people who haven't listened or read the book, why is it contrarian, and why is it, against the grain from the normal, because we can dive in and unpack the 12 questions and actually the part of the book, because I think that probably is a lot of where your learnings came from too, because I want to also hear, how that actually was applied and you experienced it in your journey. But why is it against the grain? Like what's the premise there?
Well, anyone who writes a book is trying to convince themselves of an idea. They're not really trying to convince their readers of an idea, but themselves. I mean, so there's good books have internal conflict in them, as do I. As much as the book is quite deliberate and definitive in its perspective, you can feel the confusion and the tension in my own logic on the pages of the book. As I'm driving out of our driveway on the very last day, so we've sold the business, I've worked there for 6 months, they've asked me to go home, I'm driving out and I go, in my mind, I'm looking in the rear view mirror, looking at the building, and I go, this is unbelievable. This is the third time we've done this as a family business. We have never transitioned a business into the next generation's hands. My great-grandfather was entire distribution business. My my grandfather had a chemical manufacturing business. My father had the plastics business. That's the business that I ran and helped sell. So there it was again, like start it, run it, sell it. We've never gifted our businesses to our kids. And like if our kids want our businesses, they need to go to a bank and borrow money and buy it. And I was actually in the process of doing that. And I'll talk about that later. But I thought, isn't that interesting? So I thought, I think at some point I gotta write that story. Because all of the family business books that I read carried the same old narrative. Founder starts a business, invites their kids in. They read these books. The books say, have lots of family meetings, lots of communication, transition the business into the hands of the kids. The kids will love you. You will love your kids. You'll make lots of money. It'll be fantastic. And everyone will remember you as the great founder of the great family business. And the older your business is, the more successful your family will be and built to last and old is good. And I'm like, well, I guess we're a loser family because we never ever get those businesses transitioned. And I got to tell you, we didn't feel like a loser. We sold that business 10 multiple EBITDA, all cash, like no earn out. It was an amazing deal.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, you know what? I gotta write this book. I got to write this book. I got to offer business owners a different narrative, a different set of goals. And I got to tell you, the day that we sold our business to this day was the best day of my life. It was an incredible moment watching someone slide a check across a table and pay you not just for, I don't know, your sales, but for your brand, your technology, the goodwill, the innovation. All of that was reflected in the price that we were able to get for our business. And I thought that's got to be a goal for more people. So that was the genesis of the book. That was the impetus for writing it. And quite frankly, it's the best thing, I think the most successful thing and certainly the most satisfying thing that I've ever done.
So why do people disagree with that strategy then? What's the main objectives that you hear from the family and business industry?
Well, I can tell you right now, I have two horrific groups of people that I speak to in my professional speaking career. I have software developers who, when I'm speaking at their conferences, they're flicking their pens and twirling their hair, and they're like, "Is this guy done? Of course we're going to sell our business. Duh!" Like they've got 4 more businesses that they want to start, ramp up, and sell. Right? So they're a tough audience because they're like, "Are you done?" I totally
got it. Thanks.
Got it. Like it's done in a minute. I got it. Then at the other end of the continuum are farmers, where their business has been gifted to them. Their land, their business is under their nails. The dirt under their nails represents their hard work, their legacy. They work on the land that they live on. It's all mixed up. It's so emotional. And they hear my message, as do many business owners in different industries. And they go, why would I ever sell this business? It was given to me by my father and by his father. This is who we are. Even the unborn will be farming in our family. And they just bristle at the suggestion that every business needs to be sold. Their identity is so wrapped up in the business, the emotional connection to the land, or to the business, or to their people, or to their community, is so ingrained that the sale represents a public acknowledgement of failure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because they believe that the sale represents a broken family, a broken business. Because we all know, Ryan, that you'll only sell broken businesses, right?
Right.
Like you never sell a business that's in the middle of a hockey stick, right? You know, that big ramp up in sales, growth, peaking. You wouldn't want to sell a business then.
So, and I was watching some of your videos online too, and you've got such a strong opinion about this, and we're going to unpack this too. But I think you even said that there's a lot of narcissism that is in there. And what is the reasoning by saying that? And what are the huge challenges that, like, I mean, you mentioned it, but it's all intertwined. But like, why do you think it is the way it is?
Well, I think the founders are the biggest problem. The founders who have spent more time on their business, literally more hours on their business than they have their family. Mm-hmm. it's self-rationalizing to imagine that their greatest work of art, their greatest legacy, the thing that they will remember for the most is their business. It's their greatest triumph. And so what do? They offer inflated salaries or free shares or discounted shares, and they lure their children onto the farm, into the business, into the manufacturing operations, a retail store, whatever it is. They lure them in with this idea that the business owner, the founder, will retire. Let's call it semi-retirement, because you and I both know they never leave the building.
Right.
Ever. They may go to Florida, play some golf, but they always come back. And they always come back with their opinions and their assessments of how the next generation is doing. And where's the family money? Where's the dude's dough? The founder's money is wrapped up in a liquid stock in the retained earnings of that operating business. That's why they never leave the building.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the idea is that they're going to pull a salary in retirement while their kids run the business. Like, that's the plan. And then they're going to die, and then the shares will go to mom. Then mom's going to have a heart attack because she's running a business she doesn't love or understand.
And she probably despises it because of all the lost time for her husband for decades.
All right. I got to tell you right now, I get more phone calls from elderly women whose business owner husbands have predeceased them. And you know what they tell me?
What's that?
They want to bring their husband back from the dead and kill them themselves. It's insane. They don't want the business. The business starts to spiral out of control. Competitors pick it off for pennies on the dollar. It's the same old movie playing in local theaters right across the country, and you're going to see it over and over and over. This is a real problem. Business succession planning, exit planning is a big problem now, primarily because business owners are living vastly longer. Mm-hmm. So that scenario I just painted, where the business owner semi-retires, like they would die at 72. They'd have a heart attack. Right? Now that business owner semi-retiring at 67, 68 on average, they're having heart attacks at 72. Now they're getting a stent and running 4 marathons. These guys are dying in their 80s and 90s, and their kids are in their 60s and 70s looking for permission to retire. Never mind buy the business. Just it's not working. And the kids are getting fed up building value in businesses that they don't own.
Right. And then, I hear it so often, Tom, is I got multiple friends who own family or are work, and they're in this trap where they're just going to grind away, and they say, well, we're just not going to rock the boat. And I'm like, you're going to have to buy your own value back at some point, you guys. Like, it just makes no sense to me. Like,
Absolutely right. Yeah. They're actually working against their own interests.
Right. Yeah. Like, so you're going to double the size of the company, and then you're going to have to pay twice as much. So that makes no sense.
Exactly. So when the kids complain about that scenario and the parents go, you know what? Zip it. Relax. Don't worry. One day, all this
will be yours.
You got it. And you have to promise that don't worry about the price that you have to pay. You just got to hang in here long enough until we die. Death becomes a triggering event for the intergenerational transition of a family business. And it's not happening. It's happening way too late.
So then what is, maybe we can kind of go into what is actually, before we didn't do that, I'm curious, Tom. So was it you came from the banking side at 37. So you came into your business at a significantly different kind of place than I would say probably most family members come into it. So where did your mentality come from, and how did you guys get to that point where you said it's the best day of your life, and it still it is? So how did you get there?
Well, I think it came as a result of our really odd family culture. I was actually buying shares in that business 7 years before I joined as an employee. Mm. And I would go to the bank and I would borrow money and I would buy shares. And the share price was going up every year because the company was doing very well. And I bought shares, 5 consecutive years. After doing that, my father put me on the board of directors. And then 2 years later, he hires me as CEO. So think about it, right? I'm a shareholder first, a director second, an employee third. We do it all backwards.
Yeah, that was exactly backwards.
We do it all backwards. So this idea, when I'm stepping into that business the day one as CEO, I'm not thinking, this is the Tom Dean's Legacy show. All I got to do is kind of mail it in, be a little bit overpaid, underwork, maybe do this for 10, 15 years till our kids are old enough we can foist it onto them. that is not our family culture. It is all about being very mindful of the value we're creating inside that business and how it's going to be monetized. It's going to be monetized by someone buying it. Family members buying it, employees buying it, strategic buyers buying it, someone buying it. We're not gifting it. And I know that. Like, I know that walking in at 37 in 1999, that's my business to continue to buy at market value, or that's my business. And here's the catch. It's my business and I can help sell, and I can make money in our family doing it either way.
Mm-hmm.
So what often happens in family businesses is they forget the second piece. They forget to have compensation models in place for family members that aligns their economic interests. So often in family businesses, if they get sold, mom and dad get rich and junior loses their job.
I don't know what that's like.
Right?
Right. So
Well, that's why many of the family businesses don't get sold. I gave a speech to at an M&A conference this summer. I'm like, man, you guys, you have to understand, you're talking to all these owners. The vast majority of these businesses will never, ever be sold. They'll never come to market because you are just missing the forest for the trees. These families need to have these conversations about the dangers of gifting shares. So it's just a very different model. In our family, I was very keen to continue to risk capital buy the business. And then a whole bunch of things shifted, and you could see that the real opportunity to make money came from being not a buyer, but a seller of the stock. And so that I pivoted in 2002, and it still took us 5 years to ready that business for sale and extract the value that we wanted to. 5 years to sell a business that was, oh my gosh, wildly successful.
So, and I want to dive into that, and I want to plan a C, because I want to come back to the compensation structure, and maybe we can do that before we go into the questions, because I think the separating of ownership and of salaries and the estate, all of that is so important, and no one does it correctly. So I want to make sure that we dive into that. But maybe, I don't know if you want to give a quick little rundown of the 12 questions and kind of the premise of the book, or maybe we do the compensation stuff first. I'm just kind of whatever you think is the natural order.
Let me make a general comment about the questions. We don't have enough time to go into all 12.
Yep.
But I can tell you that the book has alarmingly few answers for business owners. There are a lot of books that offer up answers, and I don't know how they do that. Seriously. I mean, every family, and you know what I'm talking about, your family was different than mine, your business is different than mine, and yet we're trying to come up with this cookie cutter approach to business succession planning for families. It doesn't work.
Right.
A lot of business owners will turn to their accountants and their lawyers, their two most trusted advisors, for help on this subject. And of course, you and I both know, in retrospect, looking back on our own deals, what happens if you're the accountant and you're the lawyer and the business gets sold?
Yeah, right.
The accountant lawyer loses the file. So we have business owners in record numbers turning to those professionals and getting really biased advice.
Who, by the way, barely know what it's like to actually be in the thick of it. I mean, they provide lots of good advice, but it's so difficult to unwind the fact that you go into the office and I was talking to this other second generation, and you literally feel trapped because you can't go so think of it, and I'm kind of going on a rabbit trail here, but it's so if I walk in and I don't like my current situation, I don't have clarity of where I'm trying to go and how I get compensated for this, but I can't just throw my resume online because everybody will see it. I'll get ridiculed for it. So you're literally just trapped. And so and that's a way, to have an accountant or an estate attorney, putting things in trusts and this and that. It's that's not solving the problem, guys. It's the emotional tension is so high. It's so difficult to get true empathy, I guess, from a lot of the advisors.
Absolutely. And often the professionals are looking at the earnings and they're going, well, why would you sell this business? Look, you're never going to get this return from your 401k, or you're never going to get this from your mutual fund. Why would you sell this? This has been the best investment of your life. Now, they're not risking their capital. They don't know that, the business owner has 80% of their personal net worth wrapped up in one illiquid stock. They don't know that. They just look at the returns on invested capital. Or They don't really understand that the next generation, if the business fails, who is going to hire? Who is going to hire me? Who is going to hire me as a president of a family business in the marketplace when they know that I got the job because I shared the surname of the founder? Right? We lack credibility in the marketplace because of who we are. We could be the most awesome CEO in the world. We are unemployable, or our value is diminished because of our DNA. It's so unfair. So often family businesses get started. Business owners feel like they painted themselves into a corner because they've got their children in the business. They don't know how to sell a business where their family is deriving a lifestyle and income from that. And children are trapped because they don't really feel like they can leave. I mean, there's a lot of kids that don't want to leave family businesses because they're afraid of being disinherited,
Mm-hmm.
being removed from a will, leaving their parents high and dry.
Mm-hmm. So how, when you say that there's not a lot of answers in your book. So then what was your main goal with the book, and how are you addressing this problem?
So I address the book. The book doesn't have answers, but it has 12 really fantastic questions that will start just the most extraordinary conversations inside the family. The the questions really are designed to be asked and answered between a parent and the next gen or a key employee. So the 12 questions work with both groups. But the questions do presume that someone has control. So some of the questions go to the controlling shareholder, and some of the questions go to the family member. And these questions can and should be asked to people who are inside the business or outside the business. It really is about bringing clarity and transparency to the family about how their largest asset will transition. And as I talk about in the book, if there is no what I call buyer in the house, if there's no key employee or family member who wants to risk their capital to buy your business, I'm like, dude, that's strike two. You're left with, financial buyers, private equity, or strategic buyers. No one's inventing new ways to get your money out of your business. You have to accelerate those and make your business sellable and prepare it for sale, because you have no one inside your family, inside your building, who loves your business enough to risk anything. So you better get moving. And there's a generation of business owners who, I'll tell you right now, they're going to leave so much money on the table because I don't know what they think. I think they think that someone's going to, they're going to meet someone at their industry convention who's got to write them a big check, and they're going to negotiate some quick deal at the Holiday Inn, and it's going to go down in like a month. It just doesn't, that's just fantasy. It's not going to happen.
So then, yeah, no, trust, we tell in our keynote, we talk about like the trade show, the random unsolicited offer. Oh my God, someone's going to give me money. Like, let's do this before no one forgets. But two different situations. One is, when are times when you would recommend an intergenerational transfer versus the third party?
That is a really, really good question. I think there's a real tension between getting the best price and preserving that thing that we call family legacy. And I think the thing that I'm most proud about in the book, Every Family's Business, is this idea that there is no business that offers itself as a legacy. Often when I'm doing keynotes, I can have an audience with 1,000 people, and I can ask a rhetorical question like, who is the founder of Coca-Cola? And it's crickets. 1,000 people in a room, no one knows. Arguably the most valuable consumer brand in the world, or it was up until a couple of years before Apple. It's a massive company with massive value, and no one knows who the founder is. And then I kind of, look to the room that I'm talking to, whether it's auto dealers or funeral home directors or whatever, franchise association. And I say, who is really going to remember you for your business? The answer is no one. That's a hard message to deliver to founders who are rightfully proud of the businesses they've created, but they are misdirected by this idea of what their legacy is. So if their business is not their legacy, it does beg the question, what is? And in my estimation, it's family. It's not the business. It's your family that is going to remember you. It's the family that is going to be providing late in life care for you as you age and, are really out of control.
Hmm.
It's the family that's going to step up. And if you've used your business in a really unhealthy way to control relationships and
Right.
control family, you are going to be sorely disappointed and awfully surprised about how there is a lack of care for you when you need it the most.
I think that was extremely well said and extremely clear, because so many times I see founders use it, like you said, to control. I mean, that's really what it is it's a way of inflating prices. You can't get this much out on, out in the market. You can't, you're not going to get your inheritance. It's all of those things that are just hanging over. And, when you lose control, you're going to see who doesn't show up to help because it's finally it's time to pay the piper for all the stuff that you pulled.
Very much so. And you can see how the subject is so confusing for business owners because they learn at a very early age that the secret ingredient for making money is exercising control. And like in business, you either have 51% or more, or you don't. It is just all about control. And so then the subject of business succession planning comes up, and all of a sudden it pivots and it's all about relinquishing control. Like, how do you do something that is so counterintuitive, that has served you so well? How
Hmm.
do you all of a sudden be sold on the idea that the best succession plans are the ones where business owners approach the subject from a real place of wisdom and gratitude, and they start to ease up and really reach out for help, which is not control, which is, it's kind of like raising a white flag and saying, I'm out of control. I need help. And very few business owners do that. And they pay a huge price.
That was very well put. And it makes so much sense. I mean, it's literally just fighting gravity to all the things that made you work very well. So one couple scenarios that we've got some clients that and people that I know were like, just a couple different stories. I'm curious on your thoughts on it. Is one is like, okay, so if the owners if let's say the founders have enough net worth where they don't need the value from the business to live at all,
Yep.
and they've got a lot, if they've somehow put into some sort of board structure and they've equalized the estate. And because right now there's like multiple people, call it 4 or 5 people, all pulling a salary where they enjoy going in and working together, and the business is at least cash flowing them, and that's aside from the bigger estate. And the reality is, and I don't know, I'm assuming you've seen a lot of this, is a lot of the second generation people more on my side of the age and your age bracket, where there's a lot more of the systems. Like, this is not an identity. Like, let's systematize this. Let's create value. And so there's a lot of these baby boomer businesses that are actually run like crap, and they're not actually transferable. So there's not enough value there. Where if they were to sell it, and anybody in that kind of category, if they were to sell it after taxes, after all of this, you wouldn't have enough of that wealth to make, because you essentially got call it 500 grand of salaries. That's getting, you'd have 3 kids that would have to go find a job, and they wouldn't get enough money to make it worth it. So
Yep.
does that make sense?
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. And it was a big problem in a low interest rate environment, right? So you look at a sale, and then what are you going to do with that money? What are your returns going to be like
Mm-hmm.
outside of the family business with your investments? Yeah, you're not going to replace that income. That's just about the worst reason to keep a business going. I mean, what I'm really talking about is, I mean, every single business on the planet has a freshness date. It's got a life
Mm-hmm.
cycle. Every single business on this planet has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And no one wants to talk about the middle. No one, and they especially don't want to talk about the end. Business owners are wildly optimistic about how long their business will last, and they're usually out by decades. Of the 100 largest firms in America in the year 1900, only 16 were in business in the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a random list of 100 firms. That was America's largest firms. The ones that had the healthiest balance sheets, the biggest sales, the best margin, the best people. They were monopolies and oligopolies. They were price setters. They had brands and people, talent from Harvard and Yale, and only 16 were standing. Now take a random 100. Even fewer are going to survive. Business owners can't see past one generation.
Mm-hmm.
So much of, and coming back to your comment about narcissism, so many business owners think that their business is their legacy. And a lot of them they're a little cute by half. They really think that, I don't know, the family will figure it out. or they have no plan and they know the family won't figure it out. This is really nefarious, but there is, I call them my 1%. It's that business owner who, and there's only one out of 100 that thinks this way, but they're there, and there's still lots of them. They think that because there's no plan, they know that when they die or become incapacitated, the business will fail. When they're gone, people will gather around at their funeral and say, holy smokes, Bill was such a fantastic business owner. He died, and so did the business. I mean, he was so good, he was the only guy that could run it. That's the logic. It's insane. What Bill doesn't understand is that most people are going to stand around and go, Bill was a little bit of an ass. It was all about Bill.
Right.
It was all just about Bill. Bill didn't build systems. Bill didn't have recurring revenue. Bill didn't even play a lot of golf. He couldn't even get to the golf course because, you know what? The business was so dependent on Bill.
Woohoo. Good for you, right?
Yeah, Bill's not that bright. In fact, if Bill even has that moment where he decides he's going to sell the business, an M&A guy is going to take him out to dinner. He's going to say, you know what, Bill? I don't want to talk about business tonight. Let's just get to know each other. Let's not talk about numbers or how much we're going to pay for your business. We don't want to talk about business at all. We just want to know about Bill. Tell me, Bill, what are you into? Bill goes, well, I like playing golf. That's all. I like playing golf too, Bill. Tell me, how many rounds do you play? And Bill goes, well, I only get out 4 or 5 times a year, play a couple of industry events. That's about it. Bill does not realize that he just devalued his business. Bill has no idea how he just got gained. The right answer for Bill is, well, that's a great question. I love golf and I play 86 rounds a year. My people hardly ever know I'm gone. I mean, I'm irrelevant. I mean, I don't have customer relationships. I got someone who runs my sales department. I got a fantastic operations person. I got great systems and processes. So Bill has just hung himself with his own words. Bill's not that bright.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I totally agree. And I think there's a lot of the less ego you have and the more you actually realize that this is an investment and I want to make this valuable and I don't want to work that hard. I mean, I think inherent laziness is a good thing because you're going to figure out all the ways to never have to do something twice and you're going to make systems and you're not going to have to work. And so let's go back to then your situation, even kind of these couple clients that in these family business that I know that, okay, so let's say the company is worth $5 million. You're talking mid-market, small, more mainstream. So maybe $1 million in EBITDA, $5 million, but you pay down taxes, you do all this stuff, and there's no chance you can get 500 grand, and you can't. I mean, literally the kids will have to go get jobs. So there's a couple different scenarios I see there. One is that the kids get rewarded for increasing the value of that business over a period of time to actually all move in line to sell together. So that way they make some proceeds or they're able to reinvest. There's got to be almost a way to give them their running head start towards whatever venture it is next, if there's not enough net worth to provide for the entire family. So how do you reconcile that whole situation?
So we're starting to drift into my second book called Willing Wisdom, where I answered a couple of big questions that were really, glaring as a result of the first book. And so I'm a big fan of family meetings. And often when second gens hear my message from my first book, which is never gift the business to your children. If they want it, they need to buy it. Well, you can imagine if you're a second gener, you're like, oh, I mean, who is this idiot? I mean, I don't like that. I don't like that message. I like the just kind of hang around here and wait for my parents to die and get it for free. I like that message. Well, if they really think that message through, they're going to be waiting a long time. What I'm saying is to the second gens, I'm not trying to deny you a business. I'm a big fan of business founders transitioning wealth while they're alive, cash while they're alive. Mm-hmm. In the context of a family meeting, if you sat down 2 kids, one in the business, one outside the business, and said, hey, Mary and Billy, your mother and I have some surplus capital. We want to start transitioning our wealth now so we can enjoy watching you improve your lives, start businesses, or even transition our business. So your mother and I have $10,000 we'd like to give you each. And that could be 1,000, it could be 100,000, it could be 3 million. The amount is irrelevant. But watch this exercise. So we'd like Mary and Billy to give you each $10,000 each. And by the way, Mary and Billy, our business is for sale.
Hmm.
Now, do you want to take the $10,000 and return it back to us in exchange for $10,000 worth of stock? Or do you want to take the $10,000 and go buy a car, go buy whatever, go on a vacation, or make an investment, whatever you want? You can do anything you want. Ryan, my message is follow the money. It doesn't lie. If those kids love that business and love and believe in their own talents to take that money and grow that business, they're going to return that $10,000 in exchange for shares. If they
Yep.
don't, that's valuable information.
Well, I think that makes a ton of sense, and that clears up, because like, some of the structures that we put together is, it's cash bonuses through the gifting, and then there's also, if you actually tie like a compensation plan to EBITDA or value creation or some sort of KPIs, then they can get cash bonuses. Then you discount the business, and then they can use that to buy in. But like you said, if you give them the option, then they will go buy a car. You just know where their priorities lie. So then one of those things, then Tom, would you just say, okay, well, then we've got a timeline of like a certain valuation that we want to march towards, so that way there's enough time for juniors or whoever they are to get in and get the financial reward that they have. Like, how do you start lining up? It took you guys 5 years. What were some of the questions and the conversations that you were having to determine the buyers and the values that everybody was marching towards?
Yeah, so all of those values and timing and valuate, it's all really being driven by the questions. So, and let me just for the record, these are not my questions. These are questions that my father asked me. I have shamelessly monetized his intellectual property.
Has he got royalties on it?
Absolutely not.
Well done.
No discount for family. We're consistent. But yeah, no, seriously, he would ask these questions. And I knew, like, when I was joining, I knew that I could join as president and CEO of that business. I knew that business could be sold 6 months later. If someone came along and offered an outrageous multiple, just because I was family and I just joined the business, that never took the business off the market. It was always for sale, always to the highest buyer. Really, the only latitude that we extended to family was last look at the deal. That's it.
So then how did you, with those conversations, everything like that, did you guys like have the waterfall effect of understanding how inheritance works, how there was like, and how did you guys separate estate? I mean, did you guys equal the estate? Like, what's your kind of thoughts and opinions on how to deal with all that?
Oh yeah. So part of our family culture is, while it's really disciplined and on the surface looks like it's really hard on next gens, it's actually really transparent. So I mean, I have a copy of my parents' will. They have a copy of my will. We have 2 kids, 22, 25. When our kids turn 18, we buy them wills. I mean, they're very disappointed. They're hoping for cars, they get wills. Like, we button down our governance,
Mm-hmm.
and we share our documents. So, and I can tell you, my brother was one of my biggest supporters. He was outside the business. He's older. But because we have family meetings and we were disclosing the fact that I was purchasing the family business at market value, and let's follow the money. I go to the bank, borrow the money, buy the shares. Buying my parents' shares. The money's sitting up at the estate level. We have a copy of my parents' will. We can see we're equal beneficiaries of the estate. So as I'm running and growing the business and buying it at market value, what's my brother saying?
Thank you.
Go, Tom, go. Exactly.
Right.
Rivalry in family businesses. I'll tell you why it happens. It's because the notion of gifting a family business is allowed to percolate inside the family as part of its culture. It's never addressed. So people are left to make assumptions, and the kids outside the business look at the kids in the business and they go, well, that's where all the family dough is. They're going to get more, and they're going to get it sooner. That may be the furthest idea away from the founder or the parents.
Mm-hmm.
That is my favorite line in the book is this: silence is the great destroyer of family business wealth. It's not families that talk about their plans. It's families that leave people guessing because of the secrecy around the transition of family wealth.
It's interesting. Who did I hear recently where they said, Tom, when you have silence or unaddressed things, because, people deal with this way as they're like, marching towards an exit. I mean, pretty much all of life it applies. And when there is no answers and no when there's a void, people make their own shit up. And what happens is it's usually 10 times worse than the actual truth.
You're absolutely right. Especially when it comes to this subject matter.
So then what would you say to, the creative estate and tax planners and all those people out there where, okay, if Tom's going to the bank, getting fair market, you then pay your parents, then there's ordinary income, there's cap gains, there's, you're getting, there's double taxation, all that stuff. How does that reconcile with wealth preservation and the estate?
The most clever tax maneuver in the world is not smart enough to diminish the risk of transitioning a business into the hands of someone who doesn't want to risk capital or is not capable of running or growing that business. You can save all the tax in the world, but if you thrust a business into the hands of the wrong person, you are going to destroy everything. And that tax game is going to look like the dumbest thing you ever did. It's the tax tail wagging the dog over and over and over. I keep telling business owners, suck it up, pay your tax, make really informed decisions around your largest asset, and that's your business. And let me just share with you a very, very brief story. I was playing golf recently with a CEO of a search firm, executive search firm. And I asked him, how do you find a CEO for a company? You know what he does? He starts with a database of a couple of thousand resumes. They whittle that down to 100. Then they start telephone interviews, whittle that down to 10 candidates, face-to-face interviews. They put a team of 3 search executives on that file, multiple face-to-face interviews, and then they hire a CEO, starting from a pool of 2,000 to find the best talent. Now, you tell me what the likelihood, the probability of finding the best CEO from a pool of 2 kids.
I saw where that was going. Yeah.
That's why only 3% of family businesses make it to the third generation. Right. Because we're saving tax, but thrusting business into the hand of the wrong people. They don't work.
I mean, well.
Starting to see why I'm not a family business consultant? Who would hire me?
Yeah, right. But I mean, it is so, it's so funny because it makes so much logical sense, Tom. We're like, I was talking to my dad about it recently. And we were talking about like the royal family over and you're just like, what are the chances that the kid is capable of running the entire country? Like that it's such a ridiculous concept that it is. It's a micro version of the same thing.
Right. Exactly. It's
so so what's the premise of your second book then?
The premise of the second book is it really presumes that a business has been sold. There's been a liquidity event, and I'll make the point. And I was staggered by this to learn that many business owners will not sell their 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, or $500 million business because they don't want to deal with the issue of how to leave and transition cash. And in other words, there's a lot of business owners who feel more comfortable leaving an operating business to their children where they feel that they'll have an obligation or a duty to get up in the morning and go somewhere and do something. So this idea of just having a liquidity event and then leaving cash is really, it's really difficult for founders who never had that scenario presented to themselves. So that's why a lot of business owners do what they do. They don't sell. They just die at their desk and then transition operating businesses. So I wrote a book that basically said, look, you got to have a transition. You got to sell your business to someone. Sell it inside the family, sell it outside the family. I don't care, but always sell your business. That's, your last deal is your hardest deal, but it must be done. That's the greatest gift you can give your family is that clarity and that simplicity. But then I really did have to answer the question, how do families talk about the division of wealth? When do you leave wealth to your children? How much is enough? How much is too much? And Willing Wisdom really gets into that subject matter. And again, I offer this time 7 questions, not 12. Someone has said if I write a third book, maybe I'll offer some answers, but more questions in the second book. But these are beautiful questions to start family conversations around the importance of wills, the importance of powers of attorney, healthcare directives. Ryan, do you know that 125 million American adults, including half the adults listening to this show, don't have a will? They're missing the most basic document. If you're a business owner and you don't have a will, do you know that when you die, your business will get chopped up according to the state law that you're in, Iowa,
Hmm.
Wisconsin? Your business is going to get chopped up along with your barbecue and your canoe. It's going to get divided according to that really rigid formula. What is going on?
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's insane. It's insane because you can't talk about death. You can't talk about aging. If you do, studies show that if you have a will and you talk about it, you will die immediately. I just made that up. That is not.
That was great. No, right. Yeah, if you talk about, no, it will come to fruition. So in the, I know because we got a short amount of time here. I want to circle back, Tom, to your definition and your experience of family meetings, because I think, if we were to sum it all up, talk and start understanding and having clarity. So what would you suggest are the baby steps? What would these family meetings look like, and how do people have it? And by the way, even before you answer that, I got like this one friend who's got a family business that all he's doing is putting his head down, is working his ass off and squirreling away money, because his whole family and his sisters and everybody are like on the cow taking the milk, and he's like he's the Sherpa, and there's no one's talking about it. So what do these family meetings look like? Who should be there, and how do you what's the format?
Well, I can tell you I'm often a speaking resource inside family meetings. I come in, I speak for a couple of hours, and then I get the hell out of Dodge before all hell breaks loose. So really, I'm a provocateur. I come in, but I'll tell you what I've seen in some of these family meetings. There aren't two that are similar. They're all different. But at a recent one in Chicago, I can tell you that I watched a 15-year-old girl chair a meeting. She ran the family meeting. They rotate the chair. Now, this family is extraordinary. They have invested serious amount of time to prepare the next generation to be inheritors of significant wealth. But they're not burying their heads in the sand. They're attacking this issue, full on, and resourcing it with education and books and speakers. I mean, the next gen are so impressive. We often get the next generation that we fear, not the ones that we want, but the ones that we fear because we don't engage. And if there are concerns around the talent in the next generation, or if there's addiction issues or some other major concern, they don't go away on their own. There's just more zeros. You're just doubling down by ignoring it longer.
Mm-hmm.
So every family meeting is different, but some of the common features, they're almost always resourced. So there is a trusted advisor, a facilitator who's running the meeting. There's an agenda. There is someone taking minutes. The agendas are actually very short and very, concise and precise. They tackle one or two issues a family meeting. I'm seeing a lot more transparency. Families working on, wills, sharing wills, making sure that everyone has a clear idea of how things are going to go down. There is just so much family litigation right now. The courts in virtually every state are just jam-packed full of families fighting. There's never been so much money. $2 billion will be inherited today in the US. Today, tomorrow, and every day for the next 10 years. It is a tsunami of money. Much of that money sitting in as equity in operating businesses without a will. No will. Like just a freak show, free for all. Everyone lawyering up and grinding down these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful businesses because no one knew how to have a family meeting and start the conversation around logical, transparent transitions.
Communication, right? Just talk.
Communication and relinquishing control. Watching that next generation not run that family meeting like a board meeting where they sit at the head of the boardroom table and say, okay, I'm going to ask you some questions about our business, and whoever gives me the best answer is going to get the most money.
Right.
Like the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
The business founder, the controlling, the matriarch or patriarch, making themselves very tiny in those processes, letting the next generation, grow up and find their own voice and give them the confidence and the space to be not just as good, but to be better.
Mm-hmm.
not not a business founder who uses a family meeting to suck all the oxygen out of the room and perpetuate their own mythology about how frickin' fantastic they are. The opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And those are amazing to watch. And sadly, those great family meetings go underreported. No one's going to write an article about a great family that meets 4 times a year with their advisors and have this incredibly articulate, well thought out, well communicated plan. Who wants to read about that? That just sounds like they're boasting.
Right.
Right? What do we want to read about? We're going to read about another, Aretha Franklin without a will. We're going to read about Prince without a will. We're going to read about celebrities without wills and fighting and litigation. And we think, well, that's the trajectory that families are on. Make it, hold it, blow it, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, rice paddy to rice paddy. Wherever I travel, 25 countries I've spoken in, there's a version of that narrative.
What's your favorite one?
I think it's clogs to clogs. I was speaking in South Africa, the Dutch influence. Yeah, you start out as a peasant. You build a business, you create value. You're no longer working in the fields. Next generation, 3 generations, you're wearing clogs again.
What's really interesting, and we don't have enough time for us to really dive into this, but I interviewed this gentleman named Daniel Goldstein and he is running a 134-year-old ESOP. It started out as a family business, but they did 3 tranches of an ESOP, and they're very large, and they've been buying businesses. But he actually even broke it down. He said, like, physically, as that business continues to grow at whatever normal growth rate, and as every generation multiplies, it's not big enough to sustain everybody. So you're naturally, just by pure math, going to run into the clogs to clogs in 3 generations because there's not enough liquidity and there's not a market for it. So you just physically can't necessarily do it unless it's just one child after one child, and that's it.
And not only that, but if all you do is just gift an equal number of shares to your progeny, and they have progeny, and they have progeny.
Right.
It only takes 3 generations to get up to 60 shareholders, ex-wives, everyone with an equal amount of shares, and no definitive control. Right?
That sounds terrible.
We've addressed control. Businesses love control. That's how they make money. Someone in control.
Yep.
So you can see the paradox, right?
Yep.
Family businesses out-earn non-family businesses, and yet they don't last as long as non-family businesses. It's like, and I'm fascinated by that inflection point, and when this awesome money-making machine actually turns on itself and becomes a wealth-destroying machine. It's different for every family.
Mm-hmm. So we got to wrap up here because you got to go. What is because we've talked about a lot, you've got thousands of presentations you've done over the last decade of listening to all the people that have read your book. If there's one thing that we've talked about that you want to highlight, or if there's one thing that we've missed and there's a big takeaway for the listeners, what would it be?
The greatest gift any business owner can give their children is the freedom and the flexibility and the resources to grow up and be the people they were meant to be authentic, and not some version of the business owner themselves. The greatest gift is freedom. We know that. Living in democratic countries, we know that freedom is so valued, so cherished, and we forget that concept and that principle when it comes to our businesses.
So if the listeners want to get more of your information, the book, all that, you got blogs, all this stuff, on what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way is just the title of the book, everyfamiliesbusiness.com. You can find the book. The fastest way to order it is right off the website. Shipping is free. And if people send me a nice email, we'll even throw in some steak knives.
Ooh, Cutco?
We don't mess around here at Decon Press. I'm self-published, so the books come right away, and I guarantee it's an entertaining read. I also do an audio book, and I narrate that audio book, and it's
pretty good. It's good.
Actually hilarious.
Yep. I enjoyed it. I love it. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
All right, Ray. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.